But you do believe there is an entity.
I would identify as agnostic again towards that, but an argument against that would be, suffering and evil. That's one of the reasons. I would infer there is no deistic God, but again,
So do you believe there is an end to the chain of dependencies? Do you believe in a necessary existence?
it is a good argument against some sort of atheism, infinite regress. I'm
Yeah.
aware of it. And it's a very good argument, and you have to question yourself, where does it stop? Do we get
Yeah.
an infinite universe or a universe out of nothing? And both of them are ridiculous. I agree to that as well.
So you believe that it is logical to say that there is no infinite regress and there has to be a necessary existence?
I could argue that that makes more sense to me than a universe out of nothing or a universe that existed forever.
Okay. What do you think is the strongest argument against a necessary existence?
None, but even that, you have to assume atemporality, because if you assume God, and if there is time, the God waited for an infinite amount of time to create us, an example.
No, that's a different argument. But necessary existence, that's from dependencies, right? So you believe, you accept it to be rational that we can't have an infinite regress, there has to be an end to that chain, the mere fact that we exist and the fact that there's existence. Then with that, yeah, speaker's phone, unfortunately, you got some nutcases there.
It's very annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. The necessary existence, do you believe it to be a singular or plural?
I don't know, nor have I thought about that.
But surely by definition, when we say necessary existence, that implies the singular as opposed to a plural, right?
Why?
By name, necessary existence, one. Because there has to be an end to the chain, not ends to the chain.
Okay. I get
So,
that.
and then you already accepted, well, do you accept it to be independent?
It has to be.
Pre and post eternal?
Yes,
And unique, like nothing like it.
sure.
That's our definition of God.
But that's not your only definition of God. Most of the definition of God extends to that answers prayer, cares about us.
So then, of course, you're
You add
correct.
to it. That's a deistic God. We can agree, or pantheistic God, maybe.
Of course, then there are certain qualities, and that's where you kind of have your issues. But in a nutshell,
That could be a pantheistic God as well. I mean, philosophically speaking, right?
how so?
As a necessary being, preceding everything. And,
What do you mean by pantheistic God?
well, God, let's say, created everything, and then God is everything as a universe. I don't believe in that. I'm just saying you can say that's a necessary being that was there for always. Or a deistic God as well, I mean.
But the only issue with that would be then that would make God dependent.
On what?
Because if he's in everything, if he's in a tree and a tree is dependent.
I don't believe in that. I'm just saying.
I know. But I'm just responding to that contention, saying that if God is in a tree and a tree is finite, that would imply a part of God is finite. See, that's why the pantheistic aspect doesn't necessarily make sense. The other aspect that you mentioned, you said the problem of evil, yeah?
It's one of the problems, yes. Evil and suffering, yes.
Yes.
And divine hiddenness as well, yes.
So let's stick with suffering, yeah? Why does suffering disprove? What does it disprove exactly?
A God that maybe answers prayers, we could argue about that. A God that cares about us. When I look at, for example, at the world, there are roughly 15 million kids being raped every day. They're in forced prostitution. They pray, and their parents pray. I'm sure you can agree to this. And yet next year there will be roughly the same number of kids that are getting forcibly raped. I mean, they're raped every year.
But say raped, yeah, because obviously, yeah. So when it comes to children being raped, do you what solution for you to accept that there is a loving God? You believe there should be no grape, yeah?
Ideally, yes, I agree with that, yes. Because if I had the power to stop it, I would stop it. You would as well, I'm sure.
But surely that would contradict. Surely that would contradict free will. surely it would contradict free will. Free will means that we should be allowed to do whatever we want, right?
But do those kids have free will?
Those kids have free will as well. They can escape. Some that are able to escape, they escape. Some that go to the police, go to the police.
So
Others that can't, they
Do you
don't.
believe when you enter Jannah, you will have free will?
When we enter
Jannah,
paradise,
Yeah, Jannah. Okay, paradise. Do you have free will there?
free will in the sense of
You can do what you want.
what we want in a paradigm, yes.
So there can exist a world with a free will that doesn't have this suffering.
So here when we have free will, our free will is predicated on
I don't
good and
believe in free will, but we can.
absolutely, yeah. Like there's good and bad, and we have free will towards bad. In paradise, there is no evil. Yeah. So our free will is within the paradigm of good. So yes, there is free will, but there's a free will within a paradigm, and that paradigm is goodness.
So
Like there's no evil.
A world can exist that has free will in it without this suffering.
Yes.
So God created a world. He can create a world without this suffering, but He created a world with suffering.
Yes, but we say the intention was to test us. That's one of the reasons He created it, to test us. But also, even if you take it from a secular kind of understanding, in theodicy, it's called soul growth. Yeah, and this is an argument that theists put forward, that suffering increases growth. Dostoevsky himself said
Yeah, I'm aware of
that it increases depth of the mind and depth of the soul and the heart, and without which a person is very shallow and very surface level, and there's not really much to an individual. So I would argue that suffering improves a person, makes a person grow, and where a person wants to make an argument for suffering, they have to prove that suffering is bad. Otherwise they fall into the is-ought fallacy, that just because there's pain doesn't necessitate that it's evil. So how would you get out of that conundrum?
So you can apply many theodicies on suffering, but for human suffering. Free will, greater purpose, growing person. But there's also animal suffering, Deer getting inflamed and burning around, screaming. They don't have heaven, they don't have greater purpose, and yet they are suffering in this world as well. And it's hard to contemplate a loving, caring God with billions of animals suffering.
Would you say suffering is a objective principle, or do you think it's a subjective principle?
I would call it objective, but I'm not sure if I can explain myself.
You wouldn't be able to prove it either. It's Thomas Kuhn. He wrote a famous paper, pretty much I'm paraphrasing, saying we can never know how bats experience existence. Yeah, because obviously they've got sonar and stuff like that. So when we say pain, we're basing it on a subjective understanding of pain based upon what creatures do. And we know many examples of where creatures indicate pain, but they're not in pain. It's completely survival. There's a paper written by, I think, Peter Singer or one of these scholars, where he's actually saying that there's a bird that when it sees a predator, it will start limping. So someone observing it, I can't see you.
I don't think that's what's blocking you.
Yeah, I can't see you. Just move me. Where do you want me? Here, yeah? Okay.
So your shoulder was blocking.
Yes, sir. So, a bird limping, we know now that that bird is not injured, it's not suffering, it's a survival technique. Chimps, they will let out shrieks of pain that we would look, oh, he's in pain. But it's a survival technique to indicate to the other monkeys that there's something going on. So I would argue it is very much subjective based. So for us to say, oh, said animal is suffering, therefore the God is, not loving and this, I think it's a bit of a jump. And it's mostly from belief. Thank you. So it's from belief. So, and plus we don't believe from a Christian, I'm sure you know, if you are a Muslim, we don't believe God is all good and that's the only thing, that
it has 99 names.
99 names and attributes, yeah. So you know that God is just, God is powerful, etc., etc. So yes, Christians definitely there is an inherent contradiction here, and not for us. We don't believe there is, and especially when you look at, I've forgotten the scholar's name, that academically you can say that look, if God has created people for a test, and things are eventually like we say in the Quran, I'm sure you know, God doesn't burden a soul more than it can bear and stuff like that. That is very difficult to measure, and that's all predicated on, is there a God? Is the scripture truly from God? And is the prophet actually from God? Now, if those things are established to be true, then naturally what follows must be true. That's why most of the conversation rests upon proving those three principles. Yeah. Now, we already discussed the validity and the logical coherence of the Islamic depiction of a God, right? Which I'm sure you will agree is stronger than the Hindu depiction and the Christian depiction, which is inherently incoherent.
I'm not fully aware of Hindus, what they believe. Partially, with Christians, I'm aware of what they believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hindus, pantheism. Yeah, they believe everything is God. They believe there's millions of God, and they believe things like their God is, Krishna used to bathe in feces, and he would, there were gopis, girls that he would annoy, and there's certain arguments that can be made there that this is not exactly beneficial. Yeah, to society, it's not helpful to society. Yeah, bathing in cow manure and.
I believe many Islamic practices aren't that healthy either.
So we'll get to those, yeah. So when it comes to the Quran, what do you believe about the Quran?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So pertaining the Quran, what do you believe? Do you believe it's from God, or do you believe it's written by the Prophet, or how do you believe?
I don't believe it's from God. I believe it's written by man. The author is man.
One man or many men, or?
Mostly one man, yes.
One man, yeah?
Mostly, yes.
Which man do you think that is?
Muhammad.
So there's a study that was done by Halim Saud, yeah? And this study is peer-reviewed. You can access it in your own time. So there was a analysis that was done pertaining, you're aware of the hadith, yeah? So, hadith?
Which one?
No, hadith
Yes,
in
yes,
general,
yes,
the concept,
yes,
yeah. So hadith are sayings of the Prophet, his words. Quran, we believe, are words of Allah, narrated by the Prophet. So according to the study, and is peer-reviewed, 80% of what's in the Quran are either words being used or not in the hadith. And 60% of what's in the hadith are either words, the wordings of the hadith, they're not wordings that are in the Quran. So, and there's another one by Behnam Sadeghi, in which he also, through stylometry and stylometrics, proves that the Quran, in terms of its consistency, only has one author. So when you take these two peer-reviewed evidences together and literary studies, one proves that it's not from the Prophet and there is one author. Then when you look into the Quran, the prophecies, and you look at how they have been measured by non-Muslims, because I'm sure you'll say, look, Muslims will be biased. I'm sure you know about the one about the Byzantines and the Persians. Is a prophecy.
Yes, I'm aware of it. I've read the critics as well, so yes.
So I'm interested to hear about what the critics have said.
I'm not fully aware to speak of them now. To be honest. I've read my critics. I know arguments against and for. Yes.
No problem, because I have also looked at what the critics have said. I haven't come across anything convincing. That's why I was curious. So the Quran says, from 3 to 9 years, the Byzantines will beat the Persians. Yeah. Now, that's exactly what happened. Now, normally, if you know about cold reading, if you know about prophecies, people typically make prophecies that are non-time specific, and they typically make and keep them very vague. Now, this prophecy is very specific. It's not just one prophecy. It's layered. It also says that Muslims will be celebrating as well. And that's referring to the Muslims winning in the Battle of Badr. And this sequence of events is also mentioned by a non-Muslim primary source evidence, the Chronicles of Theophanes. Yeah, primary source, and he verifies that the sequence of events that are mentioned in the Quran did indeed take place when they occurred. So my argument would be that, and the Quran invites this, it doesn't say blindly follow and this and that. When you look at the prophecies, they haven't been proven to be wrong, incorrect, ahistorical. Yeah? So taking all of these things into consideration, and of course you know about the preservation, yeah? Quran is preserved.
I would argue against that, but that's a long topic to argue.
Okay, so I will give you just a couple of evidences, which is that even in terms of stylometrics that have been done, again I'm coming to stylometrics, there's something called the status questionis. Status questionis is when the academics in the field, they agree on the status, yeah, of the questionis. And Van Putten is the name that you need to look for, yeah, because he's the one that's written on this. He's the one that's accepted in the field, and he says that when we look in stylometry, we realize that the Quran has 4 archetypal texts, from now, when we go back, the Quran coalesces towards. There's no archetypal text of the Bible. There's no archetypal text of the Vedas that you can measure it by. It is passed on, and there's a general meaning that's accepted. That can't be said about the Quran. That's number one. You can jump in.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, of course.
When you mentioned there are prophecies, you are aware there are critics to these prophecies, and both sides to it.
But
You are
this
aware of
one,
it.
yeah, but this one I haven't come across a credible counter to it.
Okay, so I accept that there can be truths in the Quran, there can be truths in the Bible, Vedas, so I agree with that. But to me, if the author is an all-knowing God, it has to be 100% truth. Do you agree with that? There can be like 70% truth, 30% falsehood. Do you
Yeah,
agree with
of
that?
course.
I can Google him after our call.
Okay.
He's very famous as well, and I was kind of like, how can you argue that if there's one mistake? I can't,
Okay, I'll have to look into this, but it's the first time I've come across this. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you. There are no mistakes in the Quran. Yeah, and for us to say, oh no, but it's only one mistake. No, that's false. Yeah, I agree
disrupts
with you.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's something that I will need to look into, and then maybe we can touch base again.
Another preacher told me, hey, but this was fixed. To me, that's not a logical answer. It's fixed.
Yeah. I'll have to look into this. I'm not the right guy to be talking about this.
And there are many moral issues you're aware of. I mean, I'm aware of.
Like
as well.
what?
Many of these. Well, we can come into topics of slavery, topics of child marriage.
So dealing with slavery, what's the issue?
I inherently think it's wrong to have slave markets and sell slaves there, buy them, then resell them again.
But is this more of a cultural issue or is it a religious issue?
Not sure I understand the question.
So the concept of slave markets and buying and selling slaves and encouragement of that is something that's cultural, right?
So Islam prohibits, allows that, right? Is that the right?
No, does Islam encourage that? Bear in mind that he's got our salamat, yeah?
Yeah.
So does Islam encourage the continuation of slavery, or do you think there are ample evidences within Islam that encourage freeing of slaves and anti-racist rhetoric? Because you'll be aware of these narrations, they're often quoted.
I think Islam allows slavery, and it lived inside Islamic countries for 1400, 1500 years until it was abolished by force of the West, or whatever the right term is.
So with slavery, think about it. Islam is saying there's no superiority of a black person over a white person over a black person, Arabs over non-Arabs. So that's the racist element.
There are some derogatory hadith about black men, they will become white when they enter Jannah and these kind of things.
Yeah, but that's not to do with the color of their skin. That's to do with other aspects. For example, when the heart becomes dark because of sin, and there's clear exegesis about that is not referring to skin color. Otherwise, why would God create black people and then say, yeah, the blackness will change? It doesn't make sense. But pertaining slavery, Islam encourages freeing slaves. Like you do X action for you to, cleanse yourself, you need to free a slave. And then when you look at the anti-racist aspect of that either, and then you take it in totality, you can see that Islam is not encouraging slavery, rather it is encouraging freeing slaves. And when you say slavery, in Bukhari, it's not the slavery as we know it today. For example, in Bukhari it says, you are not allowed to call your master my lord. And you can't call the person that's your slave, my abd. Yeah? Rather, you need to call your slave your brother. What you eat, you need to give them. You cannot overwork them. You're encouraged to free them. So this is not the slavery. What a lot of people do is they superimpose the slavery of the West onto what's mentioned in the hadith. You agree with that, right?
Partially, yes.
So that's why we don't say slavery, we say indentured servitude, because the criteria that's within Islam is completely different to the criteria that's depicted here in the West.
What I would argue against is when you mention a hadith or the other, there are many hadith regarding slavery. You agree with this?
But hadith contradicting what I've just said?
No, so some of them are good in your terms, as in freeing your slave for this, and there are other, for example, they were allowed to split mother from their child and sell them separately. You have where Ibn Umar went to the slave market and he would shake these things from a woman and say, hey, where is her master? No, he was just testing how good is she.
Where is this? Where have you come across this?
What's it called? I'll send you via email. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, because I haven't come across this.
I know, I didn't either until I started reading critics, they get from these sources.
Yeah, but the critics, you have to look at the authenticity of the hadith as well, and that's where I think if we look at where that's coming from, it's not going to be authentic, because it goes against fundamental principles of the Quran.
But how else can you buy something if you don't see how good that they are?
Yeah, you can see it, but it doesn't mean that you touch the private parts of the individual.
Why not? If she's just something to buy.
Yeah,
no, but these are long topics. I agree.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, principally, if you look at the Islamic principle of slavery, compared to the West, compared to what the Bible says, there's a big difference. It's not the same. Yeah. And secondly, there's two schools of thought here. One is, how do you abolish slavery? Do you do it straight away, or do you do it gradually? The Islamic system is done gradually.
But it never abolished slavery.
No,
you are ruling over a country for 1,500 years and you still have slaves at the end.
Yeah, you're not. No, you're not ruling over a country for which country are we ruling over 1,500 years?
The Islamic country, let's call it again.
There is
Caliphate.
Yeah, the caliphate was not for 1,500 years. There were multiple caliphates, and they were led by multiple communities. You had the Abbasids, you had the Ottomans, and they had their different ways of doing it because culture then seeped in. So that's not Islam, that's the culture trying to implement Islam. But if we look at how it was done in the West, the American Civil War, the North versus the South, there was an absolute bloodbath. It's the biggest stain in American history when they were trying to abolish slavery straight away. So then a person needs to prove that, okay, abolishing slavery, let's weigh the pros and the cons here. And people say that abolishing it gradually is more superior than abolishing it straight away and having an absolute bloodbath. And that's why our system of gradual removal is better than immediate removal. Do you see? Because even when you look at how it was removed here in the West, it wasn't technically removed until about 2005 or 2015. Our taxpayers' money was still paying reparation to the slave owners. And even the 4 years after, when it was abolished, slaves had to work for free under apprenticeships. Why? Again, to pay a significant amount of the slave owners. So when people talk about abolition of slavery, was it an abolition, or was it just rebranded into something else and kept as more acceptable? So again, I would argue even these countries per se did abolish it gradually. And if Islam was there, it would have been done much more effectively, in my opinion, compared to giving reparations and making them work for free and this and that. They had no rights in those days. 4 years, that's where the term apprenticeship comes from. So that's the issue pertaining slavery. A lot of people think that, it's the same slavery that was here in the West, but it wasn't. Indeed, you're correct to suggest that certain people then hijacked that slave concept, but that was mostly cultural based, like how the Ottomans treated slaves or how ex-individuals treated slaves. You can't prove it from scripture, but you can prove that it was committed by Muslims. But that doesn't mean that it was in Islam. You see where I'm coming from?
Yes, I do.
So then, what else pertaining the Quran? How would you determine if a scripture comes from God? What criteria does it need to have?
That's very hard to do. To differentiate something coming from God and something coming from supernatural being.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do that.
And if your criteria or your conclusion was that it was written by an individual, the Prophet.
Yeah, I mean, it's man-made. Yes, that's what I said. Yes.
And then when I asked you who, you said the Prophet, the Prophet Muhammad.
Yes, that's what I would argue for.
And then we've already proven from the works of Behnam Sadeghi and Halim Saud that academically that's incorrect.
We haven't proved anything. You claim that's what they claim, and I'm sure there are others claiming something else.
No, but in this field, they're the ones that have used stylometry and they've used literary processes and they haven't been refuted. So this concept of other people have said, who? They haven't. Because this is the field, it's stylometrics and stylometry, and these are the people that have peer-reviewed journal. You can't just put out a peer-reviewed journal on said topic if it's a load of nonsense. You see, there's credibility in it. And if there's an academic critique to it, then we look at the academic critique. But who's come forward?
I haven't looked into that, sorry. I mean, I would look into
It's worth looking into. When you go, have a look into it.
As a Muslim, I never believed in evolution. You're aware of that. I mean, I believe in the story of Adam and Eve. Yes, you can contemplate that with part of the world is evolved, others are created by God. But to me, now, evolution makes much more sense than creationism in terms of Adam and Eve.
Do you believe evolution leads to atheism?
Not necessarily, no.
Good. So you could, because you believe evolution is constantly, pardon the pun, evolving, yeah?
Yes, but we can't observe it because it takes a long amount of time to
Exactly.
happen.
So the understanding of evolution we have today could change within the next couple of 100 years.
I'm sure, yes.
So when you say that evolution, my understanding of evolution.
So he was recording. So.
Okay. So when you say your conception of evolution, it contradicted.
No, for example, when I look at childbirth, amount of children that died during childbirth, and amount of women that died during childbirth, evolution makes much more sense why that happens than a design. As an engineer, I wouldn't design women in that way that they suffer tremendously, and there's a high chance of dying during childbirth for a woman and a child, especially in the earlier times. That doesn't seem like a design to me. I'm being honest, just. When I look evolutionary, it makes much more sense why that happens.
So there's a slight flaw in that argument, yeah? And I think John Lennox makes it really well. Just because a car is not well designed doesn't mean there's no designer.
Okay.
Yeah? So when that argument gets made, I think there's a bit of a sleight of hand that gets done over here. It doesn't exclude a designer. And secondly, what we say is that evolution, Big Bang, force of gravity, all of these things, they're mechanisms. And God, by definition, is a creator of mechanisms. So they both don't contradict each other.
Evolution, from...
Because even evolution, you believe that there was a first man.
No.
Okay, so from Homo habilis,
Okay.
Homo erectus, to then Homo sapien, there has to be the last Homo erectus, and then there is...
No, so I'm not fully aware how it works because, as I said, I was a Muslim and I didn't believe in this. So I didn't read about it, etc. So my knowledge about this spans last 2 years when I did what I did. But as I'm aware, there were Homo erectus and Homo sapiens at the same time. They even had intercourse with each other. And then Homo erectus died out and only we were left out. I'm just saying, when I see childbirth, when I see other things, it makes more sense to me than that we are designed.
But here's the
That's what
thing.
I'm saying.
Yeah. But my point was this, that you still believe in the first man or the first Homo sapien.
No, I don't.
So all of these Homo sapiens go to who? What, multiple Homo sapiens?
No, at some time there were, let's assume 10, 20,000 Homo sapiens.
Right, but there was a transition from Homo erectus to the Homo sapien, right?
I'm not sure from what, transition from what, I'm not sure. I can comment
Because
on that.
that's what logically follows, yeah?
Yeah.
From one to the other, and there is
But
a
it doesn't
defining
have to
point.
be one, it can be many, right?
No, but for many to be happening at one time, like multiple Homo sapiens, that goes against the theory completely, because it's done by chance. Yeah, it's done by mutations through
It's
reproduction.
done by two processes, right?
Yeah, but to say that the same amount of mutations are happening in multiple places that are giving the same result, I'm yet to hear that theory. Because it's done by one. Like, okay, it's now the mutations have taken place, and now we've got, as a result, a Homo sapien, and then from that we have something else. But that's another issue. But what I'm saying is,
I'm just saying, to me that seems more plausible than growing two people and then reproducing, getting black, white, yellow, etc. people, and then all the issues with, as I said, for example, childbirth. That's one example, and others.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that this is our understanding of evolution at this moment in time. But it's not inconceivable to understand that years, decades, centuries down the line, we could understand evolution in a completely different way, and many things will be accepted. For example, at the time of Charles Darwin, Charles Kingsley, who was a friend of his, he said evolution and the way God created people, they don't contradict each other. God could have used the mechanism of evolution. Now, Charles Darwin liked this so much, he published this in the second edition of his Origin of Species. Yeah?
He was a deist at the time, yes, I'm aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't enough. Like, even Charles Darwin, he still believed in a God, even when writing the Origin of Species, and even being in the heat of
He
battle.
became an agnostic later, that's what he identified. That's what I read, at least.
Yeah. They're definitely a deist and agnostic, yeah, but never an atheist.
His daughter died young, and that's what led him to not believing there's a God that cares about us,
Yeah, exactly. The problem of evil, ironically. So, so when you look at these things in place, what was the other thing that you mentioned?
There are scientific issues, you can read about them. I'm fully aware, you are aware of these, and answers to them, you can read about them.
So when you look at how everything is, kind of how everything comes to be, yeah? The universe, how...
It's hard to answer that question, yes.
But I just remember your answer. You did believe that there is an end to the infinite regress, a necessary existence, which is singular, independent, doesn't pre and post eternal, and nothing like it. But your issue then is with the text itself and the morals that are coming from. So you'd say it's more of a moral argument, right?
There are a lot of scientific issues I could argue against.
No, but I'm sure you know that the scientific have been, rebutted, and yeah.
You can argue that there are arguments for and against. We can argue against.
But at the very least, the Quran doesn't claim to be a book of science. Yeah, and that science as well is open to interpretation. Like, there's nothing definite that the Quran says the earth is flat or the Quran says the earth is round. It's open. Yeah, and that's the thing, that if a book is timeless, you can't have strict scientific principles there, because I'm sure once there was a geocentric view, a heliocentric
I would argue that
view.
most of the hadith and the Quran is geocentric. I would argue against.
But there is space for heliocentrism as well. So that's the thing, that the Quran is not resting on the fact that, this is the view, because we may not have the tools at our disposal to understand the nitty-gritty. And if the Quran, at the time that people believe it to be flat, if the Quran is saying clearly it's round, a lot of people are going to have a faith crisis. So that's why I would argue this is an evidence for the Quran, for its timeless nature, that it doesn't say clearly, definitely, that this is how it is. So that's pertaining the science aspect of it. But pertaining the moral aspect
that's
of it.
one of the scientific issues. I'm Sure,
Yeah.
there are many. It's not one.
Yeah, and I've looked into it, and frankly, I don't think they're very strong. That's why I'd love to hear. Maybe next time you come to Speaker's Corner, we could do a part 2 as well. But just before we end, your morality, yeah, as I don't know, like what would you call yourself? You said agnostic, right?
Agnostic atheist is the
Agnostic
closest I would
atheist,
say.
but we've already discussed that you're more towards the agnostic deist side.
I'm fine with that term as well.
Where do you get your morality from?
I don't think there's an objective morality.
Yeah. So you believe in subjective morality,
I
yeah?
do, yes.
That there's technically no right or wrong.
Technically, yes.
So how do you define something to be right or wrong?
I do my best to judge what I can do, and that's what I live with.
What if you were a born serial killer?
Sorry, what?
What if you were born a serial killer?
If I was born a serial killer, I would be a serial killer. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't get the point of the question.
The point is that if you're saying, I do my best to judge if something is right or wrong, I'm saying if you're born with certain tendencies, does that make it right?
So I don't believe in free will, but that's a separate topic we can discuss sometime.
Oh,
later.
determinism, yeah, okay.
No, determinism is something else. I don't. Determinism is a different topic, but free will is a bit different. They are close to each other, but not
No
necessarily
problem,
okay.
no problem.
But if I was born, I'm not sure how a serial killer feels. Does he feel he's wrong? I don't know.
Let me give you another example. If somebody is born, because many people claim that they are born feeling attracted to children, does that make it okay?
I would ask you the same question.
I would say no, it's not okay.
So, but you get
And
my
obviously,
point.
yeah, I get your point, and we can come to that. But staying here with the asal, because I'm sure you've heard of the responses as well. So here, if a person says that they are born with the,
And I'm sure they are. There might be persons born that way.
and according to your worldview,
But
them having intercourse with children, is that okay?
But I think that's harmful to society, and majority of the society agrees it's harmful to society, and we will lock that person. That's what I would do. Yes, and then we can argue if majority of society thinks something else.
Yes.
Then what?
Yes. So then what? So what would be your
If
response?
majority of the society is wrong, or they think this is good, then what? Yes.
Yeah. So what would be your response to that?
I would move away from that society. That's what I would do.
What if that society is correct and you're incorrect? How would you know?
I wouldn't. I just feel I'm doing my best, to be good, and that's what I can do. I intend no harm to anyone.
I'm sure you've heard of the trolley
Problem, yes.
the trolley
yes,
problem.
yes, I'm aware of it.
So if the trolley is going forward and it's going to kill 4 people, you can pull a lever and it will go and it will
Kill
only
two.
kill 1 person.
Or 2 doesn't, yes.
Yeah, 1 or 2. What would you do?
I don't know.
Like here and now, based on your worldview?
But there's no right answer to that
Of
question.
course not. That's why I'm curious to see what you would do in that situation. If you say I don't know, that means you're not pulling anything, and 4 people die.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
So would you pull or
I
would you not
don't
pull?
know. It's hard.
At that moment, let's just say it happens right now. Would you, when you say I don't know, does that mean you would just not do anything?
Probably yes.
So 4 people die then?
So be it. Can I ask you an opposite question?
Yeah, of course.
So there are 4 people dying. One is missing heart, one is missing lungs, one is missing brain, whatever.
Yeah.
And you can kill me, take my brain, take my heart, hypothetically,
Yeah.
and save 4 people.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
No.
Why not? Why not save 4 people?
Because our morality is not based upon the subjective morality and utilitarianism in totality. Our morality is an objective morality that comes from God, and there are certain principles.
You believe it's objective, yes, but even
Yeah.
between Muslims, they argue between certain topics.
Yeah,
Many topics, not
Yeah.
certain, many topics.
arguing against certain views doesn't necessarily mean that the asal is changed. Yeah, it could be interpretation of said thing, but it doesn't mean that the original thing is now changed. Yeah. So similarly over here, our principle is you don't kill innocent people. Yeah. Now, for me to get those hearts and lungs and this and that,
You would have to kill me.
I would have to kill an innocent person.
and save 4 people.
Yeah, to kill an innocent person. Now, I might save 4 people, but then that might open the floodgates for me to be desensitized to killing. So ultimately, I might start killing more people. So we believe that if a principle comes from God, in totality,
Yes.
there is greater benefit from it.
Theoretically, if you hear voices in your head
Yeah.
and it says you to kill a child,
Yeah.
you would do it.
Theoretically, a voice in my head, no.
No, okay, a prophet hears voice in his head to kill a child. He does that, he doesn't do anything wrong.
So if a prophet is truly from God, yeah, then that prophet wouldn't be killing a child because it
What-
just doesn't follow.
What the Khidr did,
Yeah, but Khidr,
he killed a child.
He wasn't a child.
He did.
No, he wasn't a child.
Who wasn't?
If you look at the tafsir in Qurtubi, a couple of things get mentioned. Firstly, he wasn't a child. Yeah, he was above the age of maturity, and secondly, he was a criminal.
I've never heard of that.
No, you need to, brother.
What-
That's
what-
why you're speaking to me, brother.
Okay, okay. I'm sure there are other. Okay, I'm sure there are other interpretations as well. But what I've always heard is he was a child. Once he grows old, he will become a disbeliever, and he will turn his parents to disbelieve, and that's why the child was killed, not to turn his parents to disbelief.
But that's a moral argument that was made over there. When he grows older, this is what will be the consequence.
And then
so
that-
consequentialism. What I'm telling you is about what the material reality was, and the material
But that's
reality.
Qurtubi lived in what, 5th, 6th century. I'm sure if you looked at tafsirs previously, I'm sure that there might be others.
No, there are other tafsirs that corroborate this.
I'll look into it.
Yeah, look into it. Look into it. This is one example off the top of my head, but there's many other tafsir.
I'll look into it because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Or other is Ibrahim getting the voice to kill his son.
Yeah, but the point there is, did he kill his son? No.
He wanted to. He would do it. The question, he would do it.
He would do it just like you would punch that person in the head. Did you do it? No. Then according to any law in this world, you're not going to be held based upon your thoughts.
No, you would. I'm just saying hypothetically, if I take some, arms and try to do something, whatever, I don't want even to speak about it,
Yeah.
I would get into jail, I'm sure. If
Yeah.
police stops me, I will still go to jail.
There's intent. So you're saying intent, yeah?
I would go to jail.
Yeah. So Ibrahim's intent was there. Now what you need to do is you need to look at the intent and where it's coming from. Is it coming from subjective morality? If it's subjective morality, then it's a problem. If it's an objective morality which can be proven, it's not a problem anymore.
Okay, but I'm saying when you're killing someone, we argue even killing a child, if it comes from God, it's right.
So if
Whatever God tells you to do, you do it. So
yeah, but what we're saying is God wouldn't tell you to kill a child for no reason.
No, the reason is the child will become disbeliever and turn his parents to disbelieve.
No,
That's
but
the reason.
Yeah, but I already responded to that he was a criminal and he wasn't a child. I know you said that.
I'm just saying.
That's how we dealt with that.
I've
Yeah.
listened to many topics, many lectures. I've never heard of that.
Well, you've listened to the big dog now.
No, I listened to many shuyukh. They're down there, Salafi, and they never mention this. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the thing, brother, is that just because they're Salafi doesn't mean that they know all of the tafasir. Because
course.
this is a field of apologetics. And because we're in the field of apologetics, we look into these arguments with more detail. Somebody that's in a mosque, in a madrasa, they will not look in as much detail as
They don't
we
get
would.
questioned like you do, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why our level is, I'm not saying my level, I'm saying our level, i.e. the apologetics, their level is slightly different in the level of research that they do. But point that I'm trying to say is objective morality. Yeah, that's what we have. Now when it comes to subjective morality, for example, do you believe it's okay for you to torture an individual if it's going to save thousands of lives?
Again, it's subjective. It's how I feel about it.
Exactly. That's
It
what I'm
is,
saying.
It is. And we can call upon utilitarianism, we can call about other methods, how I get to something, but it's subjective to me, yes.
So do you think that it depends on your mood as well, because your mood influences your decisions? For example, if your brother gets attacked in front of you, yeah, your reaction would be much more severe. You're not going to look at, oh, I need to weigh if it's this or that. You're going to react because you have an emotional impetus within you to react more so. If it's your brother, your mother, or your father, correct?
I would probably, yes.
Do you think that's right?
I don't know whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, yes, that's how I would probably, do. If it's my mother, someone attacking my mother, I would behave differently than if someone attacked a random person. Yes.
So then if you're saying that there's no right or wrong, it's only what you think and you feel, and you understand and realize that how you are now, like there's a very nice quote I came across here, I just wanted to say it. A person that goes into the river twice, they are not the same person and it's not the same river. You like this, yeah? Give me a spot on that one. I memorized it, that's why I wanted to say this. Yeah? So the point is, similarly to yourself, I'm sure you know 5 years down the line, you're going to be a different person with a different set of ideals. Maybe you aren't married now, then you're married, you have a child, you're more down to earth, maybe your testosterone's gone down, and you know by the age of 25, prefrontal cortex is fully developed, so maybe you are a complete person with a different view, but then your set of ideals will be different then to how they are now.
I'm 35, so I doubt I'll be 25 again.
But then your views, let's just say when you were 22, I'm sure they were radically different.
Absolutely.
So then, would you say you were wrong then and you are right now, or vice versa?
I don't think I was wrong then. I don't feel I'm wrong now either. I mean, at that time I did best I could, I tried to do my best.
So it's just your limited understandings and your feelings, that's how you derive right and wrong.
Yes.
And if everybody done this, do you believe society would be a good place or a bad place?
I think it will be a better place.
That if everybody followed their desires,
No desires. I mean,
their own limited understanding and their emotions.
yes. If the society follows, yes. I think both you and I agree that raping a child is wrong.
Yeah.
And you and I, if you live in a society, you would do our best to prevent it. Can we agree on this?
Yeah,
And I think majority of the people there would agree with that as well.
not necessarily.
So we would stop someone from doing that. Even if there is one person who, he said, I was born with this, we would prevent that person from raping a child.
We would, but then the question would be that there have been people let off from doing the same act in the British system. They have told the judge she looked older. So where do you draw the line?
It's hard.
So
But
that's what I'm saying.
I'm not sure about the British law. In our country, there's a line. It's, a certain age, I'm sure.
Yeah. So there's now the thing that I would argue that if a person, and we can end at this point, that I would argue that if a person on the limited understand, this was the reason Plato didn't like democracy. He said giving uninformed
I
people,
don't like it either.
giving uninformed people the power to decide a ruler, and it just doesn't make sense.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and similarly, but what your view, it seemed to me that you disagree, because you're saying that people in their limited understanding and their emotional views, they can make judgments in our society and they can become leaders, representing people and enforcing their view.
I think we should, to our limited understanding of the world,
Yeah.
do our best to prevent such harm. I mean, it will evolve. I'm sure 300 years ago we thought about something as good, now we don't see it as good, so now we prevent it. It evolves with our understanding of the world.
Do you think harm is bad?
I think harm is bad, yes.
But isn't that a jump? Because harm, one is harm, like physical harm. But then now for you to say it's bad is a moral judgment. It's is-ought fallacy, right? Like, because it is the case, it ought to be the case. How are you making that jump?
So I'm not sure I understand. I'm not a native speaker either, but I think harming a child is bad. Always bad.
So I'll give you an example. Harm is a physical action, yeah? Being bad is a moral
Okay.
view. So I'm saying, how do you get from an action to a moral view or a moral conclusion that harm equals bad? How did you make that jump? Because I'm sure I can tell you, if two women consent, or a man and a woman consent to going into a ring and punching each other, as they do in Russia, they have these tournaments, if there's harm taking place, but they would argue, I'm getting £5,000 from that fight and I don't have to prostitute myself, so I can feed my kids. So how do you conclude harm equals bad?
Personally, I would let them do that. But that's very hard to draw lines
Draw
here.
the line. brother.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother, thank you so much. I
Thank you
really
very
enjoyed
much.
this
I wish you all
conversation.
the best.
And
I'm shaking a bit. It's cold. today.
Yeah, I'm
not
so
that-
sorry, but
I'm not that well dressed.
yeah, you know what? I'm thick. Like I've got so many layers, but even I'm feeling the cold as well. Thank you for staying and thank you for giving me
Thank
your
you
time.
very much for your
Thank
time.
you, brother. Take care.